She woke up that morning with a knot in her stomach. The sun had barely risen, and the house was quiet except for the soft breathing of her son in the next room. She tiptoed to his bedroom, watching him curl up in his small blanket, and her heart ached. She loved him more than anything, but the weight of being a single mother was heavy. She had spent the last few years balancing work, bills, and the constant worry about providing enough for him. She knew today was going to be challenging, but she had no choice. Their usual childcare plan had fallen through, and she had no one else to turn to. As she got him dressed in clean clothes and packed a small bag with snacks, toys, and crayons, she tried to put on a brave face. Her son noticed her worry and tugged gently at her hand. "Mom, it's okay," he said softly, his little voice full of innocence and trust. She smiled, forcing herself to feel some of that comfort. It wasn't his fault that life had gotten complicated, and she had promised herself she would do everything to keep him safe and cared for. The bus ride to work was tense. She clutched his hand tightly, trying to explain as much as she could without frightening him. "We're going to spend the day together, but I'll be working and you can play quietly," she said. He nodded solemnly, understanding more than his age should allow. His small backpack bounced against his shoulders as he held her hand, walking beside her like a little adult trying to be brave for her. When they arrived at the office, she felt all eyes on her. She could sense the curiosity and the silent judgment. Some of her colleagues gave awkward smiles, others barely concealed frowns, and a few whispered to each other. Her stomach churned with anxiety, but she tried to focus. She set her son up with his crayons and a coloring book in the corner of her office and turned back to her work, determined to make the day as normal as possible. The hours dragged. Every time she looked up, she felt the weight of scrutiny pressing down on her. She could hear murmurs from the next cubicle, the rustling of papers and low voices discussing her situation. She tried to ignore it, but the tension was impossible to escape. Meanwhile, her son sat quietly, occasionally looking up to ask a simple question or show her something he had drawn. She answered him softly, trying to maintain calm for both of them. She had just finished sending an important email when her boss knocked and stepped into the office. The smile she had forced onto her face faltered as he surveyed the scene. The small boy sitting quietly on the floor, a coloring book in hand, and her trying to look composed despite the growing panic. He didn't waste words. His tone was firm, almost cold. "Bringing your child to work is unacceptable," he said. She felt her chest tighten, the words hitting harder than she expected. She tried to explain, stammering that her childcare had fallen through, that she didn't know what else to do, that it would be just for the day, but he shook his head, interrupting her. "I'm afraid we have a policy, and it's very clear. This cannot happen again. I'm sorry, but we have to let you go." The words felt like a punch in the gut. She could hardly breathe. Her son looked up at her with wide, innocent eyes, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. She tried to stay composed, but tears threatened to spill. The office suddenly felt cold, sterile, and hostile. She packed her things in silence, her son following quietly behind her. Each step toward the exit felt heavier than the last, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her. Outside, she took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She held her son close, feeling the warmth and trust radiating from him, and it gave her a small flicker of hope. Despite the humiliation and fear, she reminded herself that she had always faced challenges before, and she had survived. This was another obstacle, but she would find a way. They would find a way together. The walk home was quiet. Her son chattered occasionally about small things, a bird they saw, a funny noise from a passing car, but she could hardly respond. Her mind was racing with questions about bills, rent, groceries, and how she would keep life as normal as possible for her son. The reality of being unemployed hit hard, and she felt the pressure of every responsibility she carried. Once home, she set her son up with a small snack and tried to make the apartment feel normal. She didn't want him to feel fear or insecurity. She reminded herself that he was resilient just as she was. Together they could get through this. She sat on the couch watching him laugh softly at something he had drawn, and felt a mixture of sadness and determination. Life had dealt her a difficult hand, but she refused to let it break her. That night she stayed up late, her son asleep in the next room. She reviewed her finances, made lists of potential job openings, and tried to map out a plan. Each rejection and obstacle she had faced over the years had taught her resilience, and she knew she would need every bit of it now. She made a promise to herself and to her son that she would not give up, no matter how hard the road ahead might be. The next morning they woke up early. She dressed her son in his favorite clothes and packed his little bag again, even though he wouldn't be going anywhere today. It was a small act of normalcy, a reminder that life could continue despite the challenges. She held his hand tightly, feeling his warmth and his trust, and took a deep breath. Together they would face whatever came next, one step at a time. The days that followed were difficult. She spent hours sending out applications, attending interviews, and trying to stretch every dollar to cover their needs. Each rejection stung, but she kept her focus on her son. She made time for small joys, reading bedtime stories, baking cookies together, and talking about dreams and plans. It was in these moments that she found strength, realizing that her love and dedication could not be shaken by job loss or harsh judgment. Through it all, her son remained her anchor. His laughter, curiosity, and trust reminded her that life was more than work, bills, or policies. She learned to cherish the small victories, a smile from her son, a kind word from a neighbor, or a positive response from a potential employer. Each day she built a foundation of hope, resilience, and love that would carry them forward. Even in the hardest moments, she refused to let despair take over. She reminded herself that setbacks were not the end, but an opportunity to find new paths. She envisioned a future where she and her son were safe, happy, and thriving, and held on to that vision tightly. The fire of determination burned quietly within her, a constant reminder that she would not give up. She would find a way to provide for her son, to protect him, and to ensure that he grew up with the love and stability he deserved. The bond between them grew stronger each day. She learned to trust her instincts, to take one challenge at a time, and to embrace the unpredictable nature of life. Her son's presence was a source of joy, even amid uncertainty, and reminded her of the importance of love and connection. They were a team, facing the world together, and neither would give up. As the first part of their journey ended, she realized that this difficult chapter, painful as it was, would shape them both. The loss of a job and the fear of the unknown had tested their limits, but it had also revealed the depth of their strength and resilience. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she felt a quiet confidence that together, she and her son could overcome anything. The bond they shared, built on love, trust, and mutual support, was unshakable, and it would guide them through whatever challenges lay ahead. The days after she lost her job were a blur of stress and worry. Each morning she woke up before her son, trying to figure out how to make ends meet. Bills loomed like dark clouds over her tiny apartment, and the thought of rent and groceries brought a tightness to her chest. She spent hours each day scouring job listings online, typing out cover letters, and calling potential employers. But most of the responses were either silence or polite rejections. Some companies didn't even bother replying. It was exhausting, frustrating, and sometimes humiliating, but she refused to give up. She had a responsibility to her son that went beyond her own comfort. Her son, despite being so young, seemed to understand that something had changed. He noticed that she spent more time at the computer, that her brow was often furrowed, and that the energy she once had was now tinged with worry. Yet he never complained. Instead, he tried to lighten her days in small ways, drawing little pictures, telling her funny stories about things he saw on the way to school, or simply curling up next to her with a hug when he felt she was too tense. She would smile through her worry, trying to absorb some of his innocence and joy into herself. Those moments became her lifeline. Every evening after putting her son to bed, she would sit alone in the quiet apartment, surrounded by stacks of unpaid bills and the hum of the heater. She made lists of job applications, planned potential schedules, and tried to stretch the money she had as far as possible. She reminded herself that being a single mother was never easy, and that the challenges she faced now were part of the fight to give her son a better life. Each rejection from a potential employer was a blow, but she tried to see it as a step closer to the right opportunity. She clung to the belief that something better was waiting, even if she couldn't see it yet. She started waking up early to make the most of her days. Before her son awoke, she would make a cup of tea, sit at the small kitchen table, and map out the day ahead. Sometimes she would read advice articles about job searching. Other times, she would practice answering interview questions out loud. She knew she had skills and experience, but she also knew that employers might judge her harshly because she was a single mother with limited backup childcare. She tried to prepare for that, to frame her situation as proof of her determination and resilience rather than a weakness. One afternoon while her son was at school, she sat in the tiny living room surrounded by notes and applications. She paused to look around the room, noticing the small signs of their life together. A drawing her son had taped to the fridge, a toy car left on the carpet, a little sock peeking out from under the couch. Despite the stress, these small things reminded her of why she worked so hard. She was not just trying to survive. She was building a life for both of them. She wanted her son to grow up feeling secure, loved, and proud of the sacrifices she made for him. She started to reach out to friends and family for leads and advice, though she hated to ask for help. Some were supportive, offering suggestions and encouragement, while others were less helpful, unable or unwilling to understand her situation fully. She learned to filter through advice, keeping the guidance that resonated with her and discarding what didn't. It was a lesson in patience and resilience, one that tested her emotional strength daily. Her son became more involved in the little routines of survival than she had intended. Sometimes he would bring her a note of encouragement he had scribbled on a piece of paper, or insist on helping fold laundry, or organize his own toys. She smiled through tears more than once, realizing that even in the hardest times, life had moments of sweetness and connection. These small gestures reminded her that they were not alone in facing their struggles, that love and trust could provide a kind of strength that no job or money could replace. One day, as she was preparing for another potential interview, her son asked if he could come along. He had always been curious about her work, and she knew he would be well behaved. She hesitated at first, recalling the experience that had led to her being fired, but she also realized that he deserved to see the world she was trying to navigate for him. They spent hours going over questions and answers, practicing ways to introduce herself and explain her situation with confidence. Her son listened intently, offering small pieces of advice or encouragement that warmed her heart. During this period, she also took time to improve herself. She attended free online workshops, read articles about career development, and practiced new skills that could help her stand out. Every small improvement felt like a step forward, and she celebrated tiny victories along the way. Sometimes it was mastering a new spreadsheet function. Other times it was writing a cover letter that truly captured her abilities and experience. Each accomplishment, no matter how small, reinforced her belief that persistence and dedication would eventually pay off. Despite the stress and uncertainty, she maintained routines for her son. Mornings began with breakfast and a little conversation about the day ahead. Afternoons were spent doing homework together, reading books, or exploring simple joys like walking to the park. Bedtime was sacred, a time for stories, gentle songs, and reassurances that everything would be okay. She made a point to separate her worries from these moments, creating a safe, loving space for her son. It was exhausting, but it was essential. She knew that no matter how difficult things were, he needed to feel stability and security. In the evenings, when the apartment was quiet and her son asleep, she allowed herself a few moments of reflection. She wrote in a notebook, recording her thoughts, frustrations, and hopes. Writing helped her process emotions she could not always express aloud, and it became a private space where she could remind herself of her goals and dreams. She reflected on the challenges she had overcome before, the obstacles she had faced alone, and the resilience that had carried her through each difficulty. She drew strength from these reflections, using them to fuel her determination for the days ahead. One evening, she received an email from a company she had applied to weeks earlier. Her heart leapt as she opened it, reading that they were interested in scheduling an interview. Relief and excitement washed over her, but it was tempered with nerves. She knew that the next step could determine a lot for them, and she wanted to be fully prepared. She spent that night going over potential questions, thinking carefully about how to present herself and her story in a way that would be honest, professional, and compelling. Her son noticed her nervous energy and offered a comforting hug. "Mom, you're going to do great," he said simply, his words full of sincerity. She smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude and love. He was small, but his support felt enormous. She promised herself she would not let fear or doubt overshadow this opportunity. Together, they had faced so much, and she knew they could face this too. The day of the interview arrived. She dressed carefully, making sure she looked professional but also comfortable. She packed a small bag for her son with snacks and toys, explaining that he could sit quietly while she met with the company representatives. He listened carefully and nodded, understanding that this was an important day. She felt a mixture of pride and nervousness as they left the apartment hand in hand, walking together toward the next step in their journey. At the interview, she spoke honestly about her situation. She explained her dedication to her work, her experience, and the challenges she had overcome. She did not shy away from mentioning her role as a single mother, framing it as a source of resilience rather than weakness. She watched carefully as the interviewers listened, gauging their reactions. The room was professional, but there was a warmth that made her feel a glimmer of hope. Her son sat quietly, coloring and occasionally glancing up at her with curiosity and support. After the interview, they walked home together. She reflected on how far they had come from the shock of being fired to this new opportunity. She felt cautious optimism. She knew nothing was guaranteed, but she also knew that her persistence, love for her son, and unwavering determination had brought them to this point. They had faced countless challenges together, and each day had strengthened their bond and their ability to overcome obstacles. That night, as her son slept peacefully, she allowed herself a small moment of hope. The path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of possibility. She reminded herself that she had faced difficulties before and had always found a way forward. With her son by her side, she felt capable of meeting whatever challenges awaited them. They were a team, resilient and determined, ready to embrace the opportunities and obstacles that life would present. Even as she drifted off to sleep, her mind was active with plans and dreams. She imagined a future where they could live comfortably, where her son could grow up feeling safe and supported, and where she could find a career that respected her abilities and dedication. She held on to this vision tightly, knowing that it would guide her through the difficult days ahead. Each moment of struggle, each late night of worry, and each tiny success built the foundation for the life she wanted to create. She knew that, together, she and her son could face anything, and that hope, resilience, and love would carry them forward. The morning sun came softly through the apartment window, and she woke to the sound of her son humming as he got ready for school. Today was special. It was the day of her interview for the small company that had seemed to offer a glimmer of hope. She had spent days preparing, rehearsing her answers, and thinking carefully about how to explain her situation in a way that showed strength and determination rather than vulnerability. The stakes felt high, and her nerves hummed quietly beneath her calm exterior. She dressed her son in neat clothes, packed his small bag with crayons, toys, and a few snacks, and gave him a gentle hug. He smiled up at her with those trusting eyes that always reminded her of what she was fighting for. Together they left the apartment, stepping into the brisk morning air. Each step toward the office building was a mix of hope and tension. She could feel her heart beating faster, but she reminded herself to breathe and to focus on the day ahead. The office building looked clean and inviting. She held her son's hand tightly as they walked in, and he quietly followed her into the reception area. The receptionist greeted them warmly, and she felt a small wave of relief. Perhaps this place would be different. Perhaps this place would understand. She checked in and was guided to a small waiting area where she could sit with her son. He immediately started drawing, opening his crayons and focusing on his paper with the quiet concentration that always amazed her. Soon a door opened and a man stepped out to greet her. He introduced himself as the new manager and extended a friendly hand. When he saw her son, he paused, his face softening. She noticed a flicker of recognition in his eyes, a warmth that was different from the stiff professionalism she was used to. He crouched slightly to meet her son's gaze and spoke gently, asking his name and what he liked to draw. Her son responded shyly, and the manager smiled. In that moment, she felt a tiny seed of hope that this encounter could be different from past experiences. They walked into a modest office, and she was invited to sit while her son stayed quietly at the corner table with his coloring. The interview began with questions about her work experience, her skills, and her approach to challenges. She answered thoughtfully, weaving in stories of past successes and obstacles she had overcome. She spoke of her dedication, her problem-solving abilities, and her ability to handle multiple responsibilities without compromising quality. She felt herself relax slightly as the conversation flowed, sensing that the manager was genuinely interested. Then naturally, the topic shifted to her son. She took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. She explained how she had once lost her job for bringing him to work, a situation that had been beyond her control. She spoke about the struggle of balancing work and parenthood, of finding reliable childcare, and the determination she had to provide a stable life for her child. Her voice was steady, her emotions authentic, and she did not shy away from the truth. The manager listened intently, nodding in understanding. He leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. Then he spoke, and his words caught her by surprise. "I was once that kid," he said softly. "My mother had to bring me to work when she had no other option. I know what it feels like. I know the challenges you face, and I want you to know that I understand. Life doesn't always give us easy paths, but it teaches us resilience." His voice carried sincerity, and she felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly seen and understood. The interview continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. The manager's questions were still professional, yet they carried an underlying sense of empathy. He seemed genuinely interested in how she balanced her responsibilities, how she handled stressful situations, and how she approached problem-solving. She spoke freely, confident that her honesty was not a liability but a strength. She shared examples of times when she had gone above and beyond in previous jobs, times when she had stayed late to finish projects, and times when she had found creative solutions to difficult problems. She could see that he valued these qualities, and her confidence grew with each response. Meanwhile, her son played quietly, occasionally looking up to show her a drawing he had made or to ask a small question. She smiled at him, feeling grateful that he was patient and understanding. The bond they shared had grown stronger through the trials they had faced, and moments like this reminded her of why she had fought so hard. She wanted to create a life where he could feel secure, loved, and proud of her. This interview felt like a step toward that goal, a chance to finally find a place where both of them could belong. As the interview drew to a close, the manager leaned forward slightly, a warm smile on his face. He thanked her for her honesty and for taking the time to share her experiences. Then, with a tone that was both encouraging and decisive, he said, "I want you to join our team. I believe your dedication, skills, and resilience will be a great asset here, and I want you to know that your son is welcome here too. We understand that family matters, and we want to support you in any way we can." Her heart leapt, and she felt a mix of relief, gratitude, and joy. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she held them back, focusing instead on the moment and the possibility it represented. They walked out of the office together, her son holding her hand and chatting quietly about the building, the people, and the colors he had seen. She felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in months. For the first time since being fired, she felt like the weight of the world had lifted slightly. There was a future here, a chance to rebuild, to create stability, and to show her son that perseverance and determination could open doors. Over the next few days, she prepared for her first day at the new company. She wanted everything to be perfect, to make a good impression, and to show that she was committed not just to her work but to being part of the team. She organized her son's bag with snacks, a few quiet toys, and coloring supplies. She talked to him about the new environment, about the people he would meet, and about the importance of behaving calmly while she worked. He listened carefully, nodding, his small face filled with curiosity and excitement. The first day arrived, and she felt a mix of nerves and excitement. She dressed carefully, making sure she looked professional, and held her son's hand as they entered the office. The manager greeted them warmly, and she felt the tension in her chest ease slightly. Her son was introduced to a few colleagues, who smiled and welcomed him, making him feel included rather than out of place. She watched him smile, and her heart swelled with pride and relief. Throughout the day, she settled into her tasks, feeling a sense of focus and purpose. Her son remained quietly occupied in a nearby area, and she could occasionally glance over to see him drawing or playing calmly. The atmosphere was supportive, understanding, and professional, yet it carried a warmth that reminded her of home. She realized that she had found a place where her abilities and dedication were valued, and where her responsibilities as a mother were respected. Over the next few weeks, she grew more comfortable in her role. She met deadlines, contributed ideas, and built positive relationships with her colleagues. The manager remained supportive, checking in regularly and offering guidance when needed. Her son adjusted well too, enjoying the small interactions with the office staff and feeling part of a community that embraced them both. The experience was different from any work environment she had known before, and she felt grateful for the understanding and empathy that surrounded her. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, from being fired, struggling with unemployment, facing uncertainty, and navigating the challenges of single parenthood. Each step had been difficult, but each step had also built resilience, patience, and determination. She realized that the challenges she had faced were shaping not just her career but her character, and that she was teaching her son important lessons about perseverance, honesty, and courage. The bond between her and her son continued to strengthen. They shared small moments of joy and laughter each day, from drawing together during breaks to quiet walks outside. She cherished these moments, knowing that they were building memories and lessons that would last a lifetime. Her son's trust, love, and support had been a constant source of strength, and she felt proud of the example she was setting for him. As the days turned into weeks, she began to feel a sense of stability and hope she had not experienced in a long time. She knew challenges would continue to arise, but she also knew that she and her son had the resilience to face them. They had faced adversity together and had emerged stronger. She felt empowered, confident, and grateful for the opportunity to rebuild their lives in a place that valued them both. She realized that life had a way of testing her, of pushing her to her limits, and of presenting opportunities in unexpected ways. The experience of being fired had been painful, but it had also led her to a place where she could grow, succeed, and provide a better future for her son. The understanding and compassion she had encountered in her new manager and colleagues had restored her faith in people and in the possibility of finding balance between work and family. In the quiet moments at home, she reflected on the journey so far. She wrote down her thoughts, her hopes, and her plans, using them to guide her actions and decisions. She reminded herself that resilience, dedication, and love were powerful forces, capable of overcoming even the harshest challenges. She held on to this truth, knowing that it would continue to guide her as she navigated the path ahead with her son by her side. The journey was far from over, but she felt a renewed sense of purpose and confidence. With her son's hand in hers and the support of a compassionate workplace behind her, she knew they could face anything. Together they had weathered storms, and together they would embrace the opportunities, challenges, and triumphs that lay ahead. The future was uncertain, but days turned into weeks, and the small office that once felt so foreign became a place of comfort and stability. She arrived each morning with her son, carrying a small bag for him filled with toys and crayons. They settled into a quiet corner of the office where he could play and draw while she worked. The manager often checked in on them, not out of obligation but out of genuine concern and understanding. He seemed to recognize the struggle of balancing life as a single parent and made sure that she felt supported. Every small gesture, every smile or kind word reinforced the sense that they were finally in a safe, compassionate space. Her work began to flourish. The tasks that once felt overwhelming now had a rhythm, a sense of purpose that energized her. She found herself contributing ideas, solving problems, and earning the respect of her colleagues. Her son's presence, rather than being a distraction, seemed to create warmth in the office. He drew quietly in his corner, occasionally showing a new picture to her or to someone walking by, and those little moments brought smiles and laughter that lightened the atmosphere. She noticed that her colleagues, once unsure about having a child in the office, began to accept and even appreciate his presence. It reminded her that kindness and empathy could ripple through an environment in unexpected ways. Despite the growing comfort, the path wasn't without challenges. Some days her son would feel restless, needing attention at moments when she had tight deadlines or meetings. She learned to navigate these moments with patience, creating routines and strategies that allowed her to stay productive while still being attentive to his needs. She found that communication was key, explaining to him in simple terms what she needed to do and when, and acknowledging his feelings and frustrations. Over time, they developed a rhythm that worked for both of them, and those moments became small lessons in understanding and compromise. Outside of work, She continued to focus on creating stability at home. She budgeted carefully, making sure that bills were paid and that there was always food on the table. She continued applying for professional growth opportunities, workshops, and courses, determined to improve her skills and prepare for the future. Her son remained a constant source of motivation. His laughter, curiosity, and small acts of kindness reminded her of what truly mattered. Even on the hardest days, she found strength in their bond and the knowledge that she was shaping a life for him, filled with love and security. One afternoon, the manager invited her to discuss her progress and future in the company. They sat together in his office, and he spoke with a genuine tone of encouragement. He praised her dedication, her problem-solving skills, and her ability to navigate difficult circumstances without losing focus. Then he said something that struck her deeply. He acknowledged her journey, from being fired for bringing her son to work to showing resilience and determination in rebuilding her career. He said, "You've shown me what it means to persevere. Your son is lucky to have you, and so are we." Those words stayed with her, a quiet affirmation that she had found a place where she was valued, not just for her work but for her character. Her son began to form friendships in the office as well. Colleagues would occasionally sit with him, ask him about his drawings, or engage him in quiet games. He laughed freely, and she felt a sense of relief that he could be part of an environment that was both nurturing and professional. She saw the impact of having a compassionate workplace on her own confidence and well-being. The stress and anxiety that had once consumed her began to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose, pride, and hope. Evenings at home were peaceful, filled with laughter, storytelling, and the small routines that made life feel secure. She and her son would cook together, share stories about the day, and plan little activities for the weekend. These moments were sacred, a time to reconnect, to remind each other that despite past hardships, they had built a foundation strong enough to support them both. She marveled at his resilience, how he adapted to changes with remarkable grace, and she felt grateful for the lessons he unknowingly taught her about patience, joy, and the power of love. As time went on, she began to take on additional responsibilities at work. She offered suggestions for improving workflows, helped train new team members, and took on projects that challenged her skills. Each success brought a quiet sense of achievement, reinforcing her confidence and reminding her that she was capable of much more than she had realized. The manager's support remained unwavering, and she began to see the potential for long-term growth within the company. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, a belief that her efforts were making a difference both for herself and for her son. One day, her son asked if he could show his drawings to everyone in the office. She agreed, and together they set up a small display in a corner of the office. Her colleagues stopped to admire his work, offering compliments and encouragement. The joy on his face was unforgettable. She realized that even small acts of inclusion and understanding could have a profound impact on a child's confidence and sense of belonging. That day, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the environment they had found, a place where compassion and professionalism coexisted, where her son was seen as a person and not a burden, and where she could thrive without fear of judgment. The story of her journey spread quietly within the company. Colleagues admired her resilience, her dedication, and the way she balanced her responsibilities as a mother and a professional. She became a source of inspiration, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet strength and determination she demonstrated every day. Her experience reminded everyone that life's challenges were not just obstacles, but opportunities to grow, connect, and show compassion. Her bond with the manager deepened as well. He often shared stories from his own childhood, the struggles he had faced, and the lessons his mother had taught him. She found comfort in these conversations, realizing that understanding and empathy were powerful tools in navigating both personal and professional challenges. His mentorship was invaluable, guiding her as she developed her skills, built confidence, and envisioned a future that was both stable and fulfilling. As months passed, she and her son developed a sense of routine and stability that had once seemed impossible. They knew the rhythms of the office, the small joys of interacting with colleagues, and the comfort of being part of a supportive community. She continued to grow professionally, taking on new challenges with confidence while her son thrived in the environment that welcomed him as part of her journey. The sense of security and belonging they both felt was a profound contrast to the fear and uncertainty that had dominated their lives before. The experience taught her that life's challenges could be transformative. Being fired had been painful, but it had pushed her to find an environment where she and her son were truly valued. She realized that setbacks, while difficult, often led to unexpected opportunities and growth. Her journey was a testament to resilience, determination, and the power of a supportive, understanding environment. She knew that the lessons she had learned would stay with her forever, shaping her approach to work, parenting, and life itself. She also began to mentor other colleagues who were facing challenges in balancing work and personal life. She shared her experiences openly, offering advice, encouragement, and practical strategies for navigating difficult situations. Her story became a quiet inspiration, demonstrating that resilience, honesty, and dedication could open doors and foster meaningful connections. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment in being able to help others, knowing that her journey had purpose beyond herself. Even in moments of stress, she felt a renewed sense of hope. She and her son had faced uncertainty, fear, and hardship, yet they had emerged stronger and more connected than ever. The experience reinforced her belief in the power of perseverance, the importance of empathy, and the value of creating spaces where people could thrive both personally and professionally. She knew that the path ahead would still have challenges, but she also knew that they had the tools, support, and resilience to face whatever came their way. The days at the office became a rhythm of work, learning, and small joys. She and her son found comfort in the routines they had built, the relationships they had nurtured, and the knowledge that they were part of a community that cared. Each day reinforced the lessons of patience, understanding, and the strength that comes from facing challenges together. The bond between mother and son grew deeper, their trust in each other unwavering, and their shared experiences became the foundation for a life filled with hope, love, and resilience. As she reflected on their journey, she realized that everything they had endured had led them to this moment of stability and growth. The pain of being fired, the struggles of unemployment, and the challenges of single parenthood had all shaped them, teaching lessons that would last a lifetime. She felt grateful for the understanding and compassion they had encountered, for the supportive workplace that allowed her to thrive, and for the opportunity to build a future where her son could grow up feeling loved, secure, and proud. In the quiet moments at home, she and her son would sit together, sharing stories, laughter, and small adventures. They celebrated victories, both big and small, and embraced the lessons of patience and resilience that life continued to offer. Each day was a reminder that love, determination, and compassion could overcome even the greatest challenges, and that together, they could face anything the world presented. Their journey was far from over, but it was filled with hope, joy, and the knowledge that they had the strength to create a better life for themselves. Time had a way of smoothing the rough edges of life, and she began to feel a sense of balance that had once seemed impossible. Her mornings started with the same gentle routines she had established months ago, but now there was a calmness that came from knowing she had found a place where both she and her son belonged. They walked hand in hand to the office, her son carrying his little bag and chatting about the day ahead. She smiled, feeling a quiet sense of pride and relief. The path that had once been fraught with uncertainty now held promise. Her work continued to grow in importance. She was given projects that challenged her skills, yet each task completed reinforced her confidence. She found herself thinking creatively, solving problems with solutions that impressed her manager and colleagues. It was not just about doing a job. It was about contributing to a community that respected her abilities and recognized her dedication. She felt motivated, driven not just by the need to provide, but by the satisfaction of being valued and making a difference. Her son thrived alongside her. He became familiar with the rhythms of the office, learning small lessons about patience, focus, and kindness. Colleagues would engage with him, asking questions about his drawings or commenting on his small achievements. He beamed with pride, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude that he could experience a supportive environment in addition to the loving home they had built together. It was a relief to see him grow confident, happy, and curious, even amidst the responsibilities of work and life. Over time, she began to embrace opportunities for professional growth. Workshops, training sessions, and team projects became chances not only to improve her skills, but also to set an example for her son. She wanted him to see that challenges could be met with determination, that setbacks were temporary, and that perseverance led to achievement. Each lesson she learned, Each skill she developed was a step toward a future she could build for both of them. One afternoon, the manager called her into his office. She approached, feeling a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. He greeted her warmly, and she noticed the genuine respect in his eyes. "I want you to know that your contributions have been noticed," he said. "Your dedication, your creativity, and your resilience have made a real difference here. And I want to offer you a leadership role on a new project. I believe you are ready for this responsibility." Her heart swelled with pride and gratitude. She accepted the opportunity, understanding that it represented not just recognition but a chance to grow and inspire others. Her son sensed her excitement and curiosity. They talked about the project on the way home, and he asked questions about what she would be doing. She explained simply, describing how she would work with a team to solve problems and make decisions. He nodded, impressed and supportive, and she felt the warmth of his encouragement. These conversations, small as they were, reminded her of the bond that had carried them through their toughest days. They celebrated victories together, from completed projects to small moments of joy at home. Evenings were filled with routines that grounded them both. They would cook together, share stories, and reflect on the day's events. She encouraged her son's creativity, asking him to tell stories or draw pictures about his experiences. She listened attentively, celebrating his efforts and praising his imagination. These moments reinforced the sense of love, stability, and connection that had become the foundation of their lives. Challenges still arose, as they always do in life. Sometimes deadlines were tight and her son grew restless. Sometimes she faced difficult decisions at work. Yet now she had learned to navigate these moments with patience and calm. She communicated openly, explaining situations in ways he could understand and including him in problem-solving when appropriate. The lessons of empathy, understanding, and compromise that she practiced daily became part of their shared journey. As months turned into a year, she reflected on how far they had come. She remembered the day she had been fired, the fear and uncertainty that had followed, and the nights spent worrying about how to provide for her son. The pain of those moments was still present, but it was tempered by the knowledge that those experiences had led her to a place of growth, stability, and hope. She had found a workplace that valued her, a manager who understood, and a son who inspired her every day. Her son's school experiences mirrored the growth they had achieved together. He was confident, curious, and enthusiastic, carrying the lessons of resilience and empathy he learned at home and in the office into his interactions with peers. She watched him thrive, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment not just as a professional but as a mother. The bond they shared, tested and strengthened through adversity, became a source of endless strength and inspiration. Occasionally, she would take moments to write in her notebook, reflecting on her journey. She recorded lessons learned, dreams for the future, and thoughts on how to continue building a meaningful life for herself and her son. Writing became a quiet ritual, a way to process experiences and celebrate growth. Each entry reminded her of the importance of perseverance, hope, and the power of love in shaping the lives of those we care for. The relationship with her manager continued to deepen. He became a mentor, offering guidance and sharing insights about leadership, resilience, and problem-solving. She valued these conversations immensely, finding wisdom and encouragement that strengthened her confidence and skills. Through his example, she saw how compassion and understanding could coexist with professionalism, creating an environment where people could thrive. She applied these lessons not only to her work, but also to her approach as a parent, fostering patience, empathy, and confidence in her son. Over time, she also began to support colleagues who faced challenges balancing work and family responsibilities. She shared her experiences openly, offering advice, encouragement, and practical strategies for managing difficult situations. Her story inspired others, showing that resilience and determination could lead to success and that challenges were opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to be feared. The impact of her journey extended beyond herself, creating a ripple effect of support and empathy within the workplace. Her son's role in this journey was constant and central. He was her inspiration, her anchor, and a reminder of the love that fueled her determination. Together they had faced uncertainty, fear, and hardship, yet emerged stronger, more connected and filled with hope. She celebrated his growth, his curiosity, and his joy, knowing that the environment they had created together, at home and in the office provided the foundation for a life full of possibility. She realized that life's challenges had shaped them in ways they could not have anticipated. Being fired had been painful, but it had forced her to seek an environment where she and her son could thrive. The support, understanding, and opportunities she had found were a testament to the value of resilience, honesty, and determination. She knew that setbacks were not the end, but a chance to find new paths and embrace unexpected opportunities. Even as they navigated the ordinary routines of daily life, she and her son carried the lessons of their journey with them. They celebrated victories, learned from mistakes, and approached challenges with patience and creativity. Each day reinforced the knowledge that love, empathy, and perseverance could overcome even the most daunting obstacles. They had built a life grounded in trust, connection, and resilience, a life that allowed them to face the future with confidence and hope. Looking back, she marveled at the transformation. The fear, anxiety, and uncertainty that had once dominated their lives were now replaced by stability, purpose, and joy. Her son's laughter, curiosity, and love were constant reminders of why she had fought so hard, and the supportive environment of her workplace allowed her to flourish both professionally and personally. Together they had navigated challenges, embraced opportunities, and built a life filled with meaning and hope. In quiet moments at home, she and her son would reflect on their journey, sharing stories, dreams, and small moments of laughter. They celebrated the victories that had once seemed impossible and embraced the lessons learned from hardship. Each day was a reminder that resilience, love, and determination could create a life of purpose and fulfillment. They knew that challenges would continue to arise, but they were confident that together, they could face anything the future held. Through it all, she understood that her journey was about more than survival. It was about growth, love, and the ability to transform adversity into opportunity. She had learned that setbacks were not the end but a beginning, that understanding and compassion could open doors, and that the bond between a parent and child could be a source of infinite strength. With her son by her side and a supportive community behind them, she knew they could face any challenge, embrace any opportunity, and build a life full of hope, love, and resilience. Months continued to pass, and the steady rhythm of life began to feel like a comforting melody. Every morning started with the same gentle pattern, her son waking her with his cheerful voice, the smell of breakfast filling their small kitchen, and the shared walk to the office that had become their daily routine. They had created a life built on love, understanding, and quiet determination. Each day carried its own challenges, but she met them with calm confidence, knowing how far they had come and what they had overcome together.